What's good in the hood, players? It's Benny doing stuff, and I'm hitting y'all with another banger video. So, last video we did the Eastern Conference edition of NBA team improvements. Now we got the Western Conference edition for you all, and the West was actually a lot easier to identify most of these improvements. So, let's hop right into it. Now, to start this video off, we have the Houston Rockets. The Rockets last year were a very young, rebuilding team. Not a lot of expectations going in for that team, so some things that they can improve on is stability at the point guard position, getting someone who can spread the wealth to all your younger players like a Jalen Green, like a Jabari Smith that they just picked up in the draft. And honestly, for the Rockets, you trade KPJ. Now, KPJ is a great player. He's definitely has value, being that he's only about 24, 25. I can't remember specifically.
There's no way out of this one.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
But I know he's young, and he can score efficiently enough. Like, people take field goal percentage into account way too much. You should look at things like true shooting percentage. And you can see, like, they already have a younger prospect with more potential at the same position than Jalen Green. So I would look to trade KPJ, maybe acquire a few extra picks if you could. And honestly, for the Rockets, man, was trading Christian Wood.
Who?
Christian Wood.
Niggas violent.
Christian Wood a bad deal? Like, was that a bad idea for you all? Because honestly, your big man rotation outside of Christian Wood was pretty bad. Now on to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now we all know the Thunder last year were a rebuilding team / tanking team, you know, trying to get that high-end talent in the draft, you know, move up those boards or whatnot. Some things I can see them improving on is rim protection. Now, of course, most younger teams struggle heavily defensively. You see that in the Rockets as well. Honestly, getting Chet Holmgren, it was a risky pick for you. I like the pick, but we all see his deficiencies on the defensive end.
We go. I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. Yeah, how you rhyming on the roof? I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. I ain't never see a big boy get on the roof. Yeah, how you rhyming on the roof? I ain't never see a big boy get on.
Which is the main thing that stopped you all. Thunder had a somewhat efficient offense for a rebuilding team. Time for the Portland Trailblazers. And honestly, you all just need to trade Damian Lillard. He's wasting his career there. And I know that Dame doesn't want to run from the grind. But bro, at this point, you all are just using this nigga for bread, for niggas to buy tickets. Y'all feel me? Yeah, let's say they don't trade Dame. If you don't trade Dame, how will you make a championship contending team? Because for the most part, you have no first round picks for these next upcoming seasons. And let's say even if you did have those first round picks, those picks aren't going to be as valuable because you're making the playoffs. You're contending. I just see this team peaking at a middle of the pack team. You can't make any real trades unless you put Anthony Simons and maybe Josh Hart. Maybe Josh Hart still has some type of trade value. We'll have to see in this upcoming season, but other than those two and maybe a Yusuf Nurkic, you don't have a whole lot of pieces you could trade. On to the Sacramento Kings. Now, the Sacramento Kings are one of the rebuilding teams that made massive improvements during mid-season, acquiring Domantas Sabonis, an elite all-star level big man to pair with De'Aaron Fox and have a great pick-and-roll combo going there. Some things that they can improve on, though, is their bench scoring. I like Davion Mitchell off the bench, but he's more of a defensive kind of guy. I like the signing of Malik Monk. He's a decent scorer off the bench. Tends to have his stretches where he can't hit anything and is just playing stupid basketball, but that's what a lot of bench players. And statistically, bruh, this was one of the worst teams in the NBA on the defensive end. You all allow 51.5 points per game in the paint, and you have a decent big man rotation with Richie Holmes, Domantas Sabonis, and Alex Len. Your big man rotation isn't that bad for the interior defense to be as bad as it is. And honestly, the team pretty much has to develop to reassess these players for next year. You have the decent three-point shooting around De'Aaron Fox. You have a pick-and-roll player for him that he can build chemistry with Domantas Sabonis. and Sabonis can get his own buckets himself. Next, we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the obvious thing to do is to get Russ up off the team via trade, but just how realistic is that? We've seen how hard it is for the Lakers to even try to get off of Westbrook. They're going to need both first-round picks that they have. And if you're not going to trade Russ, move him to the bench. I don't give a fuck how he feels. I don't care about the MVP from 5 years ago. He's not the same player. His athleticism is dropped.
This nigga is trash.
His decision making is as worse as it's ever been.
This nigga is trash.
Move him to the bench. Love the team got younger, but will it help on the defensive end? You still have players like Carmelo Anthony on the roster that are clear liabilities on defense. And you can't just have AD out there trying to solo squad on the defensive end. Obviously, three-point shooting on this team needs to be addressed. The acquisitions in the offseason, those players weren't bad players, but those aren't necessarily the ideal three-point shooting or 3-and-D players you want on your team. And lastly, bro, AD just has to come back better. There's no way Anthony Davis is in the prime of his career and isn't the best player on the Lakers right now. Now, we all know who LeBron James is and what LeBron James does, but Anthony Davis flat out has to be the best player on this team next year. On to the San Antonio Spurs. Really, nigga, it's not much for me to talk about. You're a rebuilding team. Just hit on your draft picks and try to maintain a winning culture. Now, that might seem like bullshit, but bruh, if players don't actually believe that they can win on this team, then eventually that's going to spill over into draft picks, your free agency signings, all of that stuff. Now, for the Los Angeles Clippers, size on this team definitely could look to be addressed, but how the NBA is today with the small ball, it's not that big of a deal, but definitely something that could be looked into, you know, specifically your backup center position, because I believe they have like Robert Covington come in and play backup center for them. Bruh, the nigga's only 6'8". Like, I would prefer someone like a 6'9", 6'10" type player, 200 pounds. Health on this team is a massive concern. I don't know what it is, bruh, but PG got injured, Kawhi got injured, missed the whole season, and those are your two best players. Then you still had little knick-knack injuries to like players like a Markieff Morris. And something else they could prove on is getting some better playmaking. Yes, you have a Reggie Jackson on your team to help with that, but how much of a better playmaker is he versus improved Kawhi? They both average around 5 assists, and I hate to look at a per game basis or even just pure numbers to determine playmaking, but Kawhi is not that big of a drop-off in playmaking versus Reggie Jackson. Now, John Wall will have to see if he's healthy, because John Wall as a playmaker is great, but he can't really stay on the floor. Time for the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, I could see this team doing multiple things that could really push them further, like playmaking. The team definitely has some solid playmakers on their team, but no one who can truly like facilitate the ball and control the pace of the game for the team, speed up the tempo, slow down the tempo for them. Something else they can improve on to help them is managing Zion and B.I.'s health. Now, of course, Zion has to lose some weight and Brandon Ingram has to add some weight, but that's something that as a team and organization you should be communicating with your players with, and also helping them steer their bodies towards that. And honestly, it may be time to trade some of that draft capital. You got all these Lakers picks and you got a few of Portland's picks, and it might be time to ship a package. Maybe you can get some free agents out next year. Maybe you package Brandon Ingram, Devontae Graham, a Lakers pick, your pick, and a Portland first round pick, and maybe get you a Donovan Mitchell or something, you know. Just things to think into account. Now, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, this team's defense was atrocious, specifically the starting five. You got D'Lo, Ant Edwards, Malik Beasley, Cat, and Vanderbilt last year. The only real defender out there in that starting five was Vanderbilt. But seeing as you just traded for Rudy Gobert, you know, you clean up some of those things. Your perimeter defense is definitely still going to be trash, but that's something that you can worry about later. The bench scoring is definitely something you should look into. They got pieces like a Austin Rivers, but I don't even think Austin Rivers can score at the same rate as Patrick Beverley, and he doesn't give you what Patrick Beverley does on the defensive end. And lastly, you have to trade D'Angelo Russell if possible. Yes, D'Angelo Russell isn't a bad player, but he just doesn't fit with the identity of the team. This team is a run and gun type of team, push the pace. And D'Angelo Russell is a slow, methodical / cerebral type player where he takes his time to dissect things in the floor. And that's just not how the Timberwolves want to run their offense, with players like Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards already being better players than D'Angelo Russell. Now, for the Denver Nuggets. It seems like every team just needs help defensively in the West, but honestly, that's what it is. Defensively, this team needs help, and specifically the interior defense. I don't like the big man rotation specifically for the defensive side. The team scored about 50 points per game in the paint against the Nuggets because they were constantly attacking Jokic. And for the most part, Jokic is going to get tired. He has one of the higher usage rates, so on the defensive end, he's lacking a bit. And will your backup point guard be able to step in and step up while Jamal Murray is resting? Obviously, we know Jamal Murray is coming back this year. Clearly, no one expects Jamal Murray to come back and be the same player off the rip. We expect him to have a backup point guard, maybe fill in the starting role a couple of games while he's out, while he's nursing his injury, trying to come back to full strength. But will that player be able to step up in Jamal Murray's absence? Will they end up having to fall back on Jokic, just carrying the squad again and tiring them out? And once team is fully healthy, we'll be able to correctly assess them. Michael Porter Jr. isn't even healthy, and that's someone who has the potential to be an elite level two-way player in this league. Time for the Utah Jazz. Now, of course, after the Rudy Gobert trade, your defense took a massive hit. He was the main reason you all were consistently ranked top 10 in defense and defensive rating. So that side of the ball needs to immediately be addressed. Now, something else I can see the Jazz improving on is pairing Donovan Mitchell with an elite perimeter player. You've seen D-Mitch get paired with a all-star level big and Rudy Gobert, and it's constantly not worked out. He's not best playmaker in the world. So clearly, him having a perimeter player, someone who can take the ball out of his hands, that can also score for himself but create for others, would be lovely for the Jazz to have. You know, someone like a DeJounte Murray level of player, you know, or not even that level of player, but someone with DeJounte Murray's skill set. Rebounding, obviously, is a definite massive concern on this team. Just look to add size with the loss of Rudy Gobert. Have players like Derek Favors on your roster still that are, honestly, they're not bad, but they're not good either, you know. Time for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, my favorite player, Luka Doncic, is on this team, so I definitely have some things I want to see them improve on. The first thing, that being a secondary playmaker for Luka. You've seen what happened last year. Luka had the ball in his hands almost every possession, bringing it up the court. One of the highest usage rates in the league. And Luka ball, for the most part, it gets you to about first, second round of the playoffs, but that's where things start to crumble a little bit. We need to see other players be able to create for themselves and others as well without just solely depending on Luka Doncic. Maybe the Mavs make a trade for someone like that, you know. Something else that needs to be addressed on this team is interior defense. It definitely wasn't the worst, but it's something that can look to be improved on. With the acquisition of Christian Wood, your defense definitely took a hit, especially interior defense. But for the sake of the offensive end and the offensive firepower that he gives you, is it worth it? And lastly, just developing a better offensive game plan. We've seen what Luka ball is, bro. Just 5-out pick and roll and hunt for threes. For the most part, it has been an efficient offense, but that's not how you win championships, or that's not how you make consistent deep playoff runs. Now, for the Golden State Warriors, this team definitely was one of the more all-around teams in the NBA. Not a whole lot of big weaknesses, but something that I can see them improving on is just playing Jonathan Kuminga more. His athleticism and raw physical tools make him the perfect player to be a small ball five, something the Warriors love to run and do. And I could see him turning right into that player and actually being a good, perfect player to be a small ball five, something the Warriors love to run and do. And I could see him turning right into that player and actually being a good shooter too as well. So just look to develop him, play him more. Try to re-sign Andrew Wiggins for about $20 million. He was definitely a player who can score in isolation and guard one of the better players on the other team. And he's shown that in the playoffs consistently. Not locking down Luka, but making it hard for him. Locking Tatum ass down. He strapped that nigga. I ain't gonna lie, he strapped that nigga. Yeah, look to re-sign Wiggins for around $20 million. Gives you some cap flexibility, and he's able to play good to great defense while being able to score 15 to 18 points per game. And honestly, your perimeter defense is something you want to look out for next year. We all know Klay Thompson isn't the same player and doesn't look nowhere near the same player as he used to. And you just lost Gary Payton II. Some of your main players like a Jordan Poole off the bench aren't necessarily the best defenders. Look to improve on the defensive end, maybe make some trades mid-season for that. Now, time for the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this team is definitely one of the more well-rounded younger teams in the NBA. Obviously, they just need some of that experience, but they're coming for sure. Something I can see them improving on, though, is their secondary playmaking / ball handler. I like Desmond Bane, but he wasn't the playmaker of a Ja Morant, and it just seemed like it was job ball when he's in the game. It was no real offense. But hey, maybe I was just tripping and not seeing that shit. But yeah, just look to add a second ball handler. Not necessarily a scoring threat, but someone who can just spread the wealth. Spacing definitely needs to be improved. Only one player shot above average from 3 on good volume, and that was Desmond Bane. He shot 43% from 3, but no one else on the roster shot above 34% on respectable volume. So look to add more 3-point shooting. Just getting more discipline on the defensive end. This was one of the better defensive teams in the NBA, and that's surprising seeing as this is a very young team, but it just had a lot of unnecessary fouls and calls, especially in the playoffs. You've seen it where they would let teams back into the game, giving them free points, fouling them while they're in a bonus. Just being more disciplined on the defensive end definitely can make strides on this team. And lastly, we have the Phoenix Suns. Now, the Suns actually are, to me, the most well-rounded team in the NBA. They have a great scorer, facilitator, great rotations, great 3-point shooters. Something that definitely needs to be improved on is interior defense. DeAndre Ayton isn't a bad defender, but he's not someone who gets attacked, but people aren't worried about getting blocked by DeAndre Ayton. And outside of him, your big man rotation is dog shit. Bruh, DeAndre Ayton, man, he should be averaging about 25, 10, and 2. But instead, we sitting up here getting 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 1 block because he's getting spoon-fed by Chris Paul. Realistically, Chris Paul shouldn't even be the second best player on this team. It should be Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. But let me get back on track. Something else that the Suns really need to do is stay humble. You could tell that finals run in 2021 really got to their head, and it made them a little bit confident, but it also made them hella cocky.
Stay humble now. Stay humble. Come on now. Nigga, you was that humble a year and a half ago. Now you want to talk off? Come on, don't do that. Now you want to talk off, nigga. That's okay. All right, nigga.
And you seen that boil over into the playoffs with the whole Luka special bullshit by Devin Booker. By the way, you got your little ass torched by Luka. Big Luka. Fuck wrong with you, nigga. But yeah, just stay humble, man. Alright, man. So that's the end of the video, man. Hope y'all fucked with this. I mean, I know I fuck with making these videos. So as long as y'all fuck with this, I'ma keep making them. So alright. Bye, niggas.